grounds for impeachment. So I think you could certainly say that these appear to be impeachable offenses.
New accusations today. The Attorney General says he has enough evidence to charge the governor as lawmakers consider impeachment. This time, the investigation has nothing to do with the governor's affair. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Murray.
And I'm Emily Spain. Although the governor has not been formally charged, the Attorney General says he has enough evidence that could convict the governor of a Class A felony. KOMU 8's Chelsea Haynes is in the newsroom to tell us what this means for Greitens' future in office.
I spent all morning at the Capitol getting details on Attorney General Josh Hawley's allegations against Governor Greitens. Hawley says monetary resources from Greitens' own charity could have been used for personal gain or political fundraising during his campaign for governor. Less than a week after the House committee investigating Greitens released a report detailing his extramarital affair, the governor could now potentially face new criminal charges, this time for possible campaign violations. Attorney General Josh Hawley has accused Greitens of computer tampering after he took an electric donor list from his own charity called The Mission Continued and used it for political fundraising and personal gain.
My office secured court permission to share all the evidence we have collected with the Circuit Attorney's Office in St. Louis. We did this to enable the Circuit Attorney to make a charging decision as soon as possible.
Hawley says this information has been shared with the House Investigative Committee as it will not interfere with impeachable offenses of the governor. Shortly after Hawley's press conference, Governor Greitens issued a statement saying, fortunately for Josh, he's better at press conferences than the law. Anyone who has set foot in a Missouri courtroom knows these allegations are ridiculous. Josh has turned the evidence he claims to have over to St. Louis Circuit Court Attorney Kim Gardner, a liberal prosecutor funded by George Soros, who allegedly suborned perjury, falsified documents, and withheld evidence. We will dispense with these false allegations. But just across the street in the Capitol, House Minority Whip Kip Kendrick says Greitens' behavior shows a concerning pattern, which points to impeachment.
Talking to some of my colleagues, Democrats in the building, we believe, including myself, I believe that we have sufficient evidence at this point to move forward with impeachment.
No impeachment proceedings have been slapped on Governor Greitens yet, but many in the Capitol, including Kendrick, are looking forward to jumpstarting that process. Reporting in the newsroom, Chelsea Haynes, KOMU 8 News.
And earlier today, Hawley also doubled down on his position and the charity investigation. Yesterday, Greitens' attorney...
I'm going to go on doing it no matter who criticizes me or tries to intimidate me. This office will not be intimidated and we will not be deterred. We will go on doing our job for the people.
Here's what's happening right now. Lawmakers are back to work in Jefferson City. Columbia Democrat Kip Kendrick says he's expecting impeachment talk against the governor. It's unlikely to formally start tonight. We have a reporter there and we'll have updates when they become available. On Thursday, a St. Louis judge will decide whether to dismiss the invasion of privacy case against the governor. He's accused of taking a nude photo of his mistress without her consent. The criminal case is separate from the charity donor investigation. The St. Louis Attorney's Office says the invasion of privacy case should not be thrown out because the office hired a private investigator who botched his assignment. Prosecutors blame that investigator for delays in handing over evidence to the defense team. A passenger is dead after a Southwest jet lost an engine and made an emergency landing in Philadelphia. There were 144 passengers on board.
The woman was almost sucked out of the plane after a window broke from engine debris. Pilots are being credited for landing the plane safely. NBC's Mark Barger has the details from Philadelphia.
A harrowing experience for passengers aboard a Southwest Airlines flight, forced to make an emergency landing in Philadelphia after its engine blew. Part of its covering ripped off, shattering a window and damaging the fuselage in midair.
The flight crew did an incredible job getting this aircraft here on the ground.
Passengers on board described hearing a loud noise, many driven to tears.
The left engine blew, and it apparently threw shrapnel into one of the windows and depressurized the plane immediately.
The NTSB is now reporting a passenger died in the accident.
One passenger, a woman, was partially or was drawn towards the out of the plane and was pulled back in by other passengers.
Terrified passengers were forced to breathe through oxygen masks. Some posted images on social media. The 737 en route from New York to Dallas had more than 140 passengers and 5 crew members on board.
The crew declared an emergency, brought the aircraft down. As far as we can tell, the safety systems on board the aircraft worked as designed for that type of a descent.
Once safely on the ground, most of the passengers and crew were able to walk onto the tarmac. 7 other passengers were treated for minor injuries. The NTSB will lead the investigation. Mark Barker, NBC News.
This is the first death on a U.S. commercial flight since 2009. Southwest says it will share more information as it becomes available. Today, protests continued outside the Philadelphia Starbucks, where 2 black men were arrested while waiting for a friend. Starbucks plans to close 8,000 company-owned stores May 29th to teach racial-biased education. Last week, the 2 men were arrested for trespassing while they were waiting for a friend inside the store. Starbucks says the store manager who called police has been transferred somewhere else.
Russian officials are accusing British intelligence agencies for a suspected chemical attack in Syria as a means to pave the way for Allied strikes. A Russian chemical weapons expert said the rebels refused to show any of the attack victims' bodies. Russia's envoy says the attack was highly likely organized with some help.
Actually, there is no other plausible explanation than the interference of the British Special Services. No other plausible explanation.
He did not provide any evidence of the alleged British involvement. The White House has pushed back new sanctions against Moscow. The move contradicts comments made by a U.S. ambassador this week. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said there would be new sanctions imposed against Russia soon. But now the Trump administration says there are no plans to do that. House Speaker Paul Ryan says despite the confusion, the administration has taken a tougher approach on U.S.-Russian relations.
We have so improved our policy with respect to Russia, far more hawkish, far more realistic, and we've just passed legislation finally rebuilding our military, which is the strongest signals we can send.
NBC News sources say the Kremlin is unsure of what Trump's next move will be and is waiting for any potential sanctions before taking action. Out there. It felt a lot more like spring today. Hope you got a chance to enjoy it. Here's a check of your full forecast with Tim. Hey, Tim.
Yeah, it was very comfortable today as a warm front continues to push some warmer air our direction. A few clouds outside, that's about it. It was a beautiful day. And mild weather tries to spill into the midsection of the country. We'll take it. Look at these temperatures. It's 64 right now in Columbia, almost 80 degrees down over Springfield and West Plains at this hour. That warm air is trying to come this way. There's almost summer-like air the further west and southwest you go into the state and into the Midwest. It feels very comfortable and very spring-like outside. Bad news is tree pollen is high right now. All those buds and blooms you see on the trees, it looks pretty, but don't let it fool you. Those tree pollen numbers extremely high right now. Ash, alder, and birch trees are high. Those alder trees, the little pollen stems that look like caterpillars on the trees, yeah, that's going to be starting to pollinate the air, unfortunately. And so the tree allergen sufferers out there, it continues here for the rest of this week. Evening planner looks like this, nice and mild. It's comfortable for patio weather tonight. Temperatures will stay in the 60s for this evening. Coming up, I do have a breezy forecast, and we're going to have to put the brakes on that warm up for the rest of this week. I'll be talking about that and your weekend forecast here in just a couple of minutes.
Tim, thank you very much. A bill puts dinner in danger for Missourians who use food stamps.
Then an update on one Columbia neighborhood doing everything it can to keep out builders.
And you're taking a live look over the capital city on this Tuesday afternoon. It is 5:08. This is KOMU 8 News, first at 5. Coverage you can count on.
All right, welcome back. You're looking live over the Sedalia area here at the 5 o'clock hour. All kinds of sunshine today. It was finally spring-like outside in a lot of spots. Temperatures not near where we should be at for this time of the year, but pretty close. We're at 64 right now in Columbia, at 66 in Jefferson City, 65 in Versailles, low 60s over northern Missouri and Macon to Monroe City, Mexico, 62 right now over in Fayette and also in Brunswick at this time. But look at that, 72 being reported down at the Lake of the Ozarks. That's where a warm front is currently, and it does try to pull in some warmer air overnight tonight. It will also start to induce that breeze out of the south and southeast. Extremely dry outside, though. 37% the relative humidity, only 64 over at the Columbia Regional Airport. Southeast winds light right now. Those will be blustery, though. for tomorrow. Your temperature track looks very mild and very comfortable here for this evening. If you want to get outside here on this Tuesday evening, go ahead and enjoy it. You're going to have some great weather here for this evening with a nice clear sky, mild conditions outside for the rest of tonight and even for tomorrow morning for the most part too, as that warm front continues to kind of move its way on in. Current wind map, you can see the convergence zone here just over southern Missouri. That's where that warm front is at this time. It moves itself all the way back into Kansas where it continues to really gust on up. Keep using that word windy because, well, tomorrow is going to be windy once this storm system moves on by. Now, the precipitation with this stays well to our north. We could see a spot sprinkle tomorrow morning. That'd be well north of Columbia. Otherwise, it'll be a dry and blustery day for Wednesday as that front moves on by. Lots of clouds, especially in the afternoon. I think we'll call it partly to mostly cloudy. Most of those clouds want to move out or at least try to thin out by Thursday morning. Eventually, we're done with all the cloud cover for Thursday afternoon, but very breezy on Wednesday. Some of those gusts could be as high as 40 miles per hour, if not higher. In Tempcast, it's cold again Wednesday night and into Thursday morning with another dry atmosphere and temperatures getting close to that freezing mark. We might have another bout of frost in the state for Wednesday night and Thursday morning. So, again, it is not wanting to warm up officially just yet. We're going to have to put the brakes on that here for the rest of the week as temperatures, well, mild for tonight, partly cloudy, 50 that overnight low. But then for tomorrow, only as high as about 55. Keep in mind, those winds could be as gusty as 45 miles per hour. So blustery tomorrow. It does start to finally warm up maybe a bit into the weekend. It's 53 on Thursday, 60 on Friday. We're into the upper 50s and near 60s on Saturday and Sunday. It looks like most of those rain chances are now out of that forecast. Will be up to near 70 for parts of next week.
Okay, Tim, thank you very much. How residents of one Columbia neighborhood are stay away to potential student housing complexes. A House bill would penalize some people on food stamps. The bill would require people on the SNAP program to comply with work requirements or lose benefits.
KOMU 8's Kyrian Lee heard from critics and the bill's sponsor. She's here in the studio with the details.
There was a significant amount of pushback during today's Senate hearing. This bill would require able-bodied people enrolled in SNAP to seek work with at least 20 hours a week or seek job training. People who failed to meet the requirements would lose benefits if they do not comply with requirements. On the first offense, an individual would be disqualified for 3 months, second offense for 6 months, and the third offense for 2 years.
Don't look at anybody that's on SNAP as a lazy person because you don't know their story. Before you judge somebody for having to reach out to get help from somebody, ask them their story.
The sponsor of the bill, Representative Hannah Kelly, says the bill would show dependents the value of being ready for the workforce. The bill passed the House already. In the studio, Kyrian Lee, KOMU 8 News.
A change in Columbia's West Ash neighborhood. Last night, the city council approved a zoning request for 38 properties. The change downzones properties from R2 to R1. That means developers can no longer build multifamily homes like duplexes and apartments there. Any building in an R1 zone must be a single-family home. A neighbor tells us the zoning change will preserve the area.
I think R1 is a protection for people who love our whole neighborhood and love the character of it. And I think often in our city and lots of cities, the developers have the power.
The West Ash neighborhood wasn't the first to successfully downzone. Benton Stevens did the same thing a little more than a year ago. Coming up, what level of education should Missouri coroners have?
Tonight, our Tom Costello reports from Philadelphia with the late details of the deadly mid-air engine explosion on a Southwest Airlines jet. Also, the red flag raised about apps that may be tracking your children when we see you tonight for NBC Nightly News.
Welcome back in your health news. A Senate committee heard testimony today about bills related to mothers and their unborn children. One bill would change when a woman can have an abortion. Currently, pregnant women can get an abortion up until they are 5.5 months into their pregnancies. KOMU 8's Dallas Parker joins us now in the newsroom to tell us why one lawmaker wants that to change.
Representative Donna Lichtenegger of Cape Girardeau wants to make the time frame shorter by 2 weeks. House Bill 1266 would give women until the 20-week mark to decide whether to get an abortion because she says the current time frame is not fair to the baby. Lichtenegger claims shortening the current period of time for abortions is not only safer for the baby but for the mother as well. Ultimately, she doesn't want unborn babies to feel the pain of an abortion.
20 weeks is 5 months. You are in your second trimester, the baby is fully formed, and the only way you can do an abortion at that point is to take that child apart limb by limb. Now, anybody that doesn't think that that's not going to hurt is not thinking.
Lichtenegger's bill had some support in the hearing today, but a couple of mothers who had to terminate their pregnancies later than 20 weeks shared their opposing views. In the newsroom, Dallas Parker, KOMU 8 News.
Changes to Missouri's death investigator system are moving through the state capitol as well. Today, a Senate committee heard public testimony on a bill that would fund training for coroners and penalize those who don't go by stripping their power to sign death certificates. Right now, there's little to no penalty if coroners don't attend. Target 8 has been investigating this system for months after a Howard County man's death investigation had major discrepancies and left no answers for his family. Today, that man's father and his father's girlfriend testified in favor of the bill, bringing their story to senators.
It's very pleasing. We made a vow when this started to make sure this happened to no other family in Missouri, and I feel like we're making a good accomplishment on that.
2 county coroners testified in favor of the bill. The Senate committee chairwoman called this a, quote, necessary bill. In your other health news, doctors say the number of kids experiencing kidney stones is at an all-time high. They say the rise is linked to kids drinking less water while having a diet high in sodium. The National Institute of Health is starting a study to see how much more water kids need to drink to avoid the issue. One participant says it's improved her health while helping her avoid bad habits.
Body was telling me, hey, you need to drink water because you're feeling dehydrated, and I would just be like, oh, I can drink like a soda or like juice and I'll be fine.
Doctors say kidney stones tend to be a recurring problem, with nearly 50% of people who have had one experiencing a second.
A recap of our top story and a final check of the forecast coming up. Here's a recap of our top story. Governor Greitens already facing a felony charge related to an extramarital affair, could soon face another felony count. Today, the state's attorney general cited evidence suggesting Greitens used a charity donor list for political purposes, which is against the law. Josh Hawley says Greitens then used the money for his gubernatorial campaign. The full story coming up at 6.
Also at 6, we are following a bill related to addiction treatment for mothers who have just given birth. Lawmakers introduced that today.
How it's related to the opioid epidemic coming up at 6 o'clock. Tim.
And skies should remain sunny here for the rest of this evening and more sunshine for tomorrow. Temperatures outside very comfortable. We're still in the 60s and probably will stay that way here for the rest of this evening. Looks like your evening planner, that Tuesday planner, looks like this. 63 for the evening, down to 50 by sunrise, and then into the afternoon tomorrow. Very breezy, but we'll get up to about 55. We're going to have to put the brakes down on that warm-up, unfortunately, only in the 50s for the rest of this week. Looks like our weekend rain chances are out of the forecast now, so we have a dry weekend.
What a tease today then, huh?
Kind of was.
In terms of breezy, how many miles an hour are we looking at?
I don't know, 45?
Ooh.
That's
like a speed limit.
That's breezy.